So now we're going to see another presentation about moving data and ensuring cybersecurity that can, of course, operate in the grid, but also beyond just the electric grid to customers and smart cities. Without any further ado, Phil, please.
So thank you, everyone. Most of you know who I am probably by now. If you don't, you'll find out soon enough. So I'm President and CEO of WiSUN Alliance. We are promoting interoperable communication solutions, particularly for AMI, distribution automation, smart cities, and home energy management systems. So we have two primary areas of activity. One, as you see here on the left-hand side, is about field area networks. So these are connecting smart meters, distribution networks, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on this in a bit. And the other is related to home area networks and HEMS environments. So the home area networking side of this came particularly out of the activities in Japan after Fukushima, where Japan went from energy surplus to energy deficit. And as Chris commented earlier, there was a situation where people needed to start looking after the amount of power they were using. And in Japan, it was considered a good way to do this is to provide energy usage information to the consumer. So the first organization was TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power. They decided to standardize on a communications protocol for providing data from the smart meter to the energy usage part of the network, their home energy management system, which could actually have energy usage information. The technology adopted for the communications, there was a choice, and I'll come to this part in a bit as well, a choice between wireless connectivity and power line carrier. And the idea was that they were complementary technologies where one works well, the other doesn't necessarily, and vice versa. So we have these two threads going on, but they're both about moving data around. So let me talk a little bit more about the FAN. So the field area network is a multi-service network. So the goal of this is to not really have to worry too much about what data you're carrying. So you can provide support for AMI data, you can provide support for distribution automation, but also the sort of data that you will carry around for street lighting, things like traffic management. And what we're beginning to see now is that utility networks are increasingly being used for other services, and smart city networks can share a common technology with the utilities. So an example might be where a utility company is also responsible for street lighting. They'll deploy a large AMI network of several million meters, and then at some time later they can put their street lights onto the same network. I've shown a number of application use cases here. Other things of interest here are also EV charging and distributed generation. And both of these environments need good communications. As Chris mentioned, EV charging stations need to know, the grid needs to know that they're there. Distributed generation is another serious problem for grid stability. So you need a good communications network. When you're in an office environment or on your cell phone, you use the network, you just expect it to work. Wi-Fi has been around for a very long time, and it just works. So we are aiming to achieve this within the smart grid and smart city space. That's the goal. At the top of this particular diagram, it shows that the mesh network doesn't just work on its own. There will be a connection into a backhaul network that could be LTE, In the US, some people are still using WiMAX, or it could be fiber or Ethernet. So here is a picture of our protocol stack. I don't intend to go into all the detail of this, but I think this picks up on a certain aspect of skills here, that if you build stuff with open standards, then not only do you get the potential for interoperability between different product vendors, but you're in a position to develop a skill set for the users, the technologists here, that is transferable. So WiSUN focuses on communication layer, the part of it that's boxed in here. All of what you see there is open standards based on IEEE communications, IETF, network and transport layer, and then the security, which is the key part of this, is using IETF transport layer with EAP-TLS, and then other parts of IEEE. And a key part of this is using 802.1 AR certificates that give you great flexibility in how you both manufacture and certify product and then deploy it and manage it in the field. So a diagram on our security architecture, and this also is a little hard to see, but I think you have the slides. What we're talking about here is that every end device on a WiSUN FAN network will have a certificate. That device certificate is its birth certificate. It proves that it is the device that it says it is and has the firmware installed that's actually been certified. So this means that even if a device becomes compromised, and we have a different situation from the situation described in the substation. In a lot of the devices you see on out there, like meters are mounted on the side of walls, for example. Distribution equipment is sitting on the top of poles. People can easily get to it and tamper with it and put new firmware in. And you need to make sure that that device can't then rejoin the network. So providing digital certificates gives you tamper-proof capability. Now, another thing about this diagram is those of the people that know a bit about enterprise security architecture will see that this maps quite nicely onto that. So you wouldn't necessarily use your IT network infrastructure to secure the grid, but the techniques and the skills are the same as managing an office network, an office or enterprise network. So the way, the tools you use like a AAA server, the way you authenticate devices. I'm running out of time now, gosh. Okay, let me talk a little bit about hybrid networks now. So as I mentioned, Japan chose to use a combination or alternates of PLC and wireless mesh. WiSUN has an effort which allows you to create hybrid networks of FAN, field area network, wireless and PLC. On the left, you see the technical profile specification for a field area network. And now we've overlaid what we call in WiSUN Netricity, which allows you to integrate PLC and wireless together. So we run 2 certification programs. The certification here on the left shows wireless, and here we show how you would do Netricity over PLC. And this shows standards-based PLC with 1901, but it could similarly be G3 or whatever. So, but running common data model, common security. We'll talk, hopefully, a little bit more about collaboration, because no single organization or no single industry alliance or entity can cover all bases, can know everything about what's going on in the grid. So, or in smart cities. So that, but the end users, the utilities, the customers, they don't want to have to go and pick and choose different parts from different places. So I think there is actually a responsibility to the industry to collaborate to deliver true end-to-end solutions. WiSUN has collaboration with these organizations, including ISGF. One thing particularly draw attention to is DLMS User Association. So just recently we signed a liaison agreement with DLMS. So going back to this particular diagram, as I said, we only focus on the communications layer, but we are working with the DLMS User Association to create a description of DLMS on how to use DLMS over WiSUN, which will be complementary to the equivalent that is for G3 and for Prime. So you can still use common data over a range, in a common way, over a range of different transport layers. In addition, in Japan, they're using Econet Lite as the application layer. We also are working towards integration of TALC. TALC is a street lighting protocol. The idea being that you can run all of these protocols on the same network, the same communications infrastructure. P2030.5, so this is a standard that's been adopted by California for data communication of smart inverters under Rule 21. That can similarly run over a WiSUN network or a PLC network or Ethernet or whatever. So this is all about how you converge technologies to make seamless interoperability. So there are others that we have yet to think of or yet to include. Some takeaways. So providing that multi-service network architecture provides a flexibility for growth and new applications and interconnectivity of particular application areas. A key thing which I hope people ask questions on is don't cut corners with security. So sometimes it's really easy for people to say, oh, my sensor's not that important, the data's not important. But what tends to happen is the data that you think is just nice in 5 years' time becomes critical use data and is part of a critical infrastructure. And that's the time when it can then become compromised. And interoperability provides choice. So we as WiSUN and G3 PLC and other organizations are about providing robust testing and certification that, if not guaranteeing interoperability, at least increases the confidence for interoperable solutions. Thank you. That's it.